Pittsburgh Steelers fans, we are back. We are, I'd like to say better than ever, but we're as average as usual. My name is Bryan Anthony Davis. Alongside me is Shannon White and Tony Defeo too. Gentlemen, how are you? You guys are making some fun hand signals here.
Tony, what's fantastic. Up? I am fantastic. How are you, Bryan? How are you, Shannon?
I'm doing great tonight. Yeah, I'm doing great tonight.
Awesome. Even though, and by the way, this show is the Steelers Hangover. It's the show where sometimes you've got a hangover, you're out, you're partying like it's 1999, and you're just having a great time, and you don't care. You're waving your hands in the air like you just don't care, and it feels good because you're having a great night. You wake up the next day, you're like, oh, but whoa, that was a great night. Then you've got the face down in a puddle of your own drool and just saying, oh, what have I done? There's different kinds of hangovers. And so all I've got to say is this one's kind of in between, an interesting one, as the Steelers go down to the Los Angeles Chargers in the City of Angels by the score of 41-37. Gentlemen, what is your initial reaction of the way that game started and the way that game ended? I'm going to start with Shannon White.
I think they learned a lot about the intestinal fortitude of the team, the makeup of the team, the fact that Ben can put up numbers and put points on the board, even when he doesn't have all the full complement of his team, the talent around him. They made plays to at least remain competitive, even without the superstars on defense besides Hayward. So I think they answered some questions that if they could get healthy and continue to develop, then they can be a playoff team and be dangerous if they get in.
Tony, what's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, if you would have told me in August that they would be without T.J. Watt, Joe Hayden, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Tyson Alualu, Stephon Tuitt, and Joe Hayden, am I missing anybody? That's five of their probably top 6 defensive players in one game. I'd be like, wow, they only gave up 41 points. So, it was interesting that they hung in there the way they did because, they could have just said, forget it. We're down 27-10. It's almost a 4 score. Let's just call it a night and get out of here. But they hung in there and they came all the way back and they took the lead. But, at the end of the day, the defense just did not have really any star power other than Hayward. And he's just such a, he can't do everything. He almost did everything, but he can't do it all. And it's just, they need to get healthy, like Shannon said. And Ben, I think that's as good as he looked all year. And that's encouraging, but they need to get healthy as a team. Otherwise, it's going to be a long 7 games, but if they can get healthy, I think they could, contend and not always lost. They still have 4 divisional games to go. So, they're still in it.
I am not going to say that the last 2 weeks of the NFL season did not hurt the Steelers, because it really did. It put them in a position where it's just going to make it tougher. But you're seeing a lot of adversity in the entire, not just the division, but the entire conference. Who would have ever thought that the Buffalo Bills would have 4 losses this early in the season? I know it doesn't seem like it's early in the season, but yeah, I would have never guessed that they would have. And who would have thought that the Browns, everybody's darling at the beginning of the year, would have this many losses as well? So with that being said, there are a lot of things that we're surprised about. Who would have thought that the Chiefs would have not been undefeated? Who would have thought that the Patriots would have found themselves and are considered by some as a Super Bowl contender right now? Not all, but some. So it's very interesting, and things can change. But if you look at the AFC standings right now, the Steelers are at 8th, and they're not very far from 7th and getting back in it. with another win. Now, the next 2 weeks are going to be very interesting for this team. Tony, I want to ask you first. What's the biggest contest out of the next two? Is it at Cincinnati or at home against Baltimore?
Gosh, I'd have to say Baltimore. I mean, they can't fall too far behind. They're a game and a half back, but they have to beat Baltimore at least once, right? So I'd say Baltimore at home. You have to win that game. Of course, I mean you have to win next week too. I mean, let's be real. I mean, you can't stumble for a third week in a row. So, but if I had to pick between the two, it would definitely be Baltimore at home.
Okay, I'm gonna bring up Mike C real quick here. I guess he does not agree. And Mike, I appreciate everything you say. Playoffs. What a joke. They couldn't even beat Detroit. No, they couldn't beat Detroit. They couldn't beat Detroit without Ben Roethlisberger. They couldn't beat Detroit without TJ Watt for half of the game. Joe Hayden, 2 guards, Chase Claypool. Yeah, they were down. Now, should they still beaten Detroit? Yeah, but they didn't. And that's the thing. But Buffalo couldn't beat Jacksonville. Baltimore should have lost to Detroit. Baltimore should have lost to Chicago yesterday. I watched that game. There's teams that this is a very interesting season with even the teams on the bottom have a chance to win every week where you never thought that they would. The Jets beat the Bengals this year, so there's a lot of things happening. I think we get a little myopic with the fact that, the Steelers are the only ones suffering and letting their fan base down. But if we were here watching a Buffalo podcast right now, the last 2 weeks were brutal for that team. They're a lot worse off than what the Steelers are, so and they lost their division lead, and the way they looked after they lost to the Steelers and then won 4 straight, I thought nobody was going to catch them. I was going to be surprised if they lost again. Never would have I thought that Kansas City would have lost 4 straight games. So yeah, I get it, but we've got to talk playoffs. This is not a team that's eliminated. They go on a 2-3 game winning streak. Next thing you know, they're back in it. They only lost 1 game in the last 2. But I'm looking at some comments here. Sixburg 6, our middle linebackers are horrible. Yeah, they're struggling.
Yeah.
And we could talk and make excuses about Devin Bush, which I kind of agree with those excuses, but nobody wants to hear those excuses. And I get it. He is just not passing the eye test right now. A lot of people are forgetting about sometimes it takes a full year to get better. And now I've got a buddy that will tell you, well, that was his knee and he should be sticking with some of these guys and receivers better. He should be tackling better. That very well could be true. Shannon, what are your thoughts on Bush? Because it seems like each week he's slipping more into the minds of the media and the fans as Artie Burns.
He is just really, it's got to be a lot of mental, because at times he moves well, not as good as previous, but it's improved from earlier in the season, but he's still hesitant. Last night he froze on one route across the middle. Eckler was killing him last night, and that was his guy. He was supposed to take him and carry him across the field, and he hesitated, and to where it was, he was out of position. He had no hope of staying with him, and somewhere along the line, every guy on the defense, you could say, well, they made a play here or there during the season, but I'll challenge you to, when has he made a play this year? I was thinking about it last night, and I can't remember a play, the big play that he made. Sometimes you just get lucky and be out of position, but the ball finds you. But he can't make a play to save his life. So I think it's he's overthinking everything, and he's not playing instinctual, and he's really a liability at the moment, to the point that they really need to look at some of the backups, whether it be Spillane, whether it be Buddy Johnson, somebody. What's he giving them that somebody else can't? Because right now he's giving them very little.
Well, I do want to mention something else, and thank you for saying all that. Yeah, I'm Sean Hannigan says this right here, and it's on Facebook. So less people, when it's a comment from Facebook, less people get a chance to see it. So I want to bring it up because keep in mind, if you're on YouTube, you can't see what Facebook's writing. Facebook, you can't see what YouTube's writing. So I wanted to go ahead and bring this one up. Bush hasn't been the same because of the leg, but he's making bad decisions, taking bad angles, and not reacting correctly. So let me ask you this, Tony. That sounds about right, but I'm still hanging on to the knee. This might change my opinion. What are your thoughts on Sean's comment?
Well, I mean, I think it's definitely he's definitely not making good decisions. But we have to remember, it's not that common to be at 100% 1 year after a torn ACL. I think it's in his head. Honestly, I think he's always been a great athlete, an explosive athlete, and now he suffered this major injury last year, and I think he's just not right yet mentally, and I think it's affecting his game because he's always been kind of the quarterback of the defense, whether he was at Michigan or his first year or so here. He maybe not making the splash plays, but he seemed like he was always pretty reliable. But now he's not reliable, and he's not a great tackler. He's Sean said he's not taking great angles. He's not making great decisions. I think it's in his head right now, and maybe Shannon said maybe it's time to see. Spillane. I know he's not a great player, but how could you be any worse than what Bush is giving you now?
That's very true. So let me go ahead and bring this up. We had a question earlier, and the question was, who are some of these guys? A lot of people were very shocked to see a number 50 out there, and that was Delonte Scott. Also, there was a number 61, and somebody was joking, what's his name? Bongwater? What is it? It's Daniel Archibong, who's a defensive tackle that was brought in as well. So really interesting stuff.
Kathy five guys.
Yeah. And not only five guys, you're still
five
missing
Pro Bowlers. Yeah.
Yeah, you're still missing Alualu, and you're still missing Tuitt.
Those are part of the five. That's what I mean. You're missing, like, they're probably five of their top six defensive players you're missing right now.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying there. Kathy asked, our good friend Kathy, would Minkah have made a difference? I think Minkah makes a difference, especially on that Mike Williams play at the end. But let me ask you about that Mike Williams play. How up in arms were you when the Los Angeles Chargers scored that quick? Tony, I'll ask you first.
I was very up in arms because it's clear that it seemed like Norwood was not playing deep enough. I mean, right there, you have to be the last line of defense when you're the free safety, and it seemed like Williams got by him far too easily. I mean, I was almost expecting somebody else to be back there to tackle him, and I couldn't believe it when I saw him, get to the sideline. It was like, holy crap! There's nobody. Excuse my language. There's nobody that's going to catch him. I can't believe they scored so fast.
Shannon?
Oh, definitely. I agree with Tony. When you have that many new guys playing, Witherspoon was in there. They tried to run him in there some, and he's just been lousy. And as soon as they see him, they pick on him. They picked on Bush last night. Norwood did his best Fitzpatrick impersonation, but there's a reason he was a 7th round draft pick and Fitzpatrick was a number 1 round, first round draft pick. Fitzpatrick, they missed him terribly bad because he is that last line of defense. And on that play, you send a slot blitz that hasn't worked hardly at all this whole year. They've actually not even used it, but they had to do something in the second half because they wasn't getting pressure. They had Cam Hayward and they had Highsmith, and other than that, nobody was getting any penetration or push. So they got desperate and they tried something. But in that case, with that many new guys in the secondary and on the defense, a busted coverage or blow coverage is quite possible. Two guys went with the inside route, leaving him wide open down the sidelines. And on top of that, Norwood, being new to the position, wasn't playing deep enough, then took a bad angle. So when you said would Fitzpatrick made a difference, even without Watt, I think Fitzpatrick would have made a huge difference last night. If we'd had both guys, obviously, I believe that would not have happened, not 41 points. But, I was shocked that they were that aggressive in that part of the game with that many new faces.
Justin Herbert, was he that awesome? Or was it a situation where the Steelers make him look better than he is? Tony.
Oh, he's awesome. I mean, the talent's evident. I mean, he's big, he's strong, he's got a great arm. I mean, he can fit it in anywhere. And of course, he can run. But I mean, when you're awesome, you're going to take advantage of a depleted defense, and that's what he did. A young guy or not, he took advantage of a depleted defense, just like any talented quarterback would. He just happens to be really young, so we're still maybe skeptical of him as a player, but I think he's that good.
I think he's phenomenal. I really do, and I've thought that all along. Shannon, so what's the main play from this game that you think really, it's tough to take one, but you think really set the Steelers back in this game?
Just a single play?
Yeah, just which one do you want back?
I was really upset with the fourth down pass, the fade into the corner with Claypool. Not even the call, not even the execution, but the fact that there was a blatant pass interference on Samuel that they did not call. And because Claypool has 5 inches to 6 inches on Samuel's, and he was getting ready to, ready to elevate, and Samuel's had his back hammer and had a hold of him to where he couldn't elevate at all. And it was so obvious, but where the ref was standing, I guess he couldn't see it. So I think that was because they knew they were going to have to score points. And that's why they went for it instead of taking the 3 points. They was trying to score a touchdown since they were down there. So I think that non-call or non-penalty really, I'd like to have that opportunity back and where they would actually seen that penalty.
All right. Second drive of the game. Tony, are you going for 3 or are you going for 7 on 4th and 2?
I agree with Shannon. I think they had to go for 7 because it was going to be hard to shut the Chargers down and hold them, under 30 some 40 points when they wound up at 41. I think you had to go for it. Obviously the play call it wasn't executed properly, but if I had to pick one play, it would be the 37-yarder to Claypool. I think if he hits them, and they said it right away. It's not like I'm breaking any ground here. If he doesn't underthrow Claypool there, that's a touchdown. But what are you going to do? I mean, they still had it 1st and goal at the 5. But if I had one play, it would be that one. I wish Ben would have had a little bit more oomph on the ball there. But he still played a great game. So
my best friend since I was 10 years old was at the game yesterday in Los Angeles. He and his wife went, and his wife's never been to an NFL game. And when Ben threw that pass to Claypool, she gets up and yells, "He's wide open!" And everybody was thinking touchdown. And he said in that stadium, the Chargers receivers were wide open all day, but Claypool would have been gone. And I think I'm glad you brought that one up, Tony, because a lot of people are forgetting about that particular play. And it's funny because we complain about different things, and oh my gosh, offsetting penalties. My gosh. So really, yesterday there was an offsetting penalty that really helped the Steelers. We've seen it kill the Steelers before. The one on Los Angeles was blatant. The one on the Steelers wasn't. So they had to go turn around and punt again, and the Steelers blocked a punt. So it's really interesting how that goes. So as far as watching this game yesterday, this is going to set everybody in the live chat off. So I appreciate that. And come at me, that's fine. But here's the question for you. What did you expect going into this game? With all of these guys out, what did you want? How many of you picked against the Steelers going into this game? Shannon, I don't know what your pick was. Tony, I don't know what your pick was. What was your pick, Shannon?
I picked the Steelers to win, and I said it would be dependent on if Highsmith could have a effective game, doing his best TJ Watt impersonation. So I picked the Steelers to win a close game.
Tony, what was your pick?
I actually picked them to lose by 24 points, and it looked like it was heading that way up until the fourth quarter. And that Killebrew block punt really turned things around. But I didn't think they would. I wasn't expecting Ben to play as well as he did. I'm not going to lie. Coming a week off of being out a week with COVID, not practicing, being away from the team, and he's been struggling really to find his old self up to now. Anyway, I didn't expect him to have the game that he did, and I expected the defense to be compromised. I mean, you can't have those many, not just players but stars out of the lineup, including your best player on your whole team, and not struggle against a good quarterback like Herbert. So I expected them to be blown out.
I picked the Steelers to lose 30-24. Does not make me any less of a fan. Doesn't make you even more of a fan to pick the Steelers just because you believe in them. Eric Weidman says, I thought we could win. I thought the Steelers could win this game going into it.
I wanted them to win.
I wanted them to win. I thought they had the ability to win, but I've seen this movie a lot of times before. And it doesn't happen the way, that we think, because when we think they could win, we are talking about the reasons they should win. And that's a really real thing. Wes says he picked the Steelers to lose, and worse than they did. No one, I expected to lose badly. Let's see. Figured it would be tough, but didn't think they would win. That was Charles Weigand. BTSC jinxed the Steelers. Brian Brown. So that's the thing. So we want them to win. We know they can win. It was like the Buffalo game. I knew the Steelers could win that game. I just didn't expect it to happen because I thought Buffalo was going to be this juggernaut coming off of an AFC championship loss, and the Steelers found a way to win ugly in that game, but they found a way. Brad Jewett says, I never really lost faith throughout the game, but I got pretty darn close. Even when they were down 17, I wasn't done yet. I'm thinking, I'll give up after this next series. That's about, I really thought they can do some things in this game. But my question is, if a lot of you expected to win, if a lot of you expected the Steelers to lose, why are you so mad right now? I know nobody likes nobody likes the term a moral victory. And I don't think the Steelers are looking for moral victories. They're not. But when you see Derek Tuska out there and you see guys like that coming out, as starters, you're like, wow, the Steelers should be blown out of this game. And I looked at one point, it looked like the defense couldn't stop anybody. But my buddy that was at the game said it was really interesting because he was really close to the Steelers bench. And you could see when they had the block punt, how they just rose up. And you could see them like flexing their muscles and hulking up at that point. You could feel them just going crazy, is what he said, and like getting ready, believing that they could win this thing. So with that being said, why are you mad? Why should we be mad here? I know they lost, but if you're going to lose with half of your team hurting, isn't it cool to see that they have the potential to put things together with a skeleton crew? And when that crew no longer becomes skeleton, what they can turn into? That's what I'm thinking here. Tony? Merritt?
I mean, yeah, I guess people are they really buy into the standard as a standard, and as I wrote about this morning, there are no, as you said, there are no more victories. The standings don't care about the injuries, so I guess that's probably why a lot of reason why people are mad. And of course, everybody else in the division won on Sunday, and the Ravens, the way they won was kind of annoying. So that probably has a lot to do with it too. But I just think people have to have better. I hate to say be more realistic, but they do, because I mean it's like when you lose when you have that much star power out, I don't care what slogans you have, like the standard is the standard. It doesn't matter. You're not going to replace all that talent. So I just think. I think people, they talk about the backups and they act like the Steelers have the worst depth in the league, but everybody's depth is like the Steelers pretty much. The days of having these up and coming players waiting in the wings, it's just not like that anymore with the salary cap and so much player movement. So I just think people they think because you're wearing a black and gold uniform that you're automatically supposed to go out there and replace TJ Watt. And there's a reason why he's making $80 million guaranteed.
All right. We are going to go ahead and take a break, and we're going to talk more. And I'm going to mention something that's going to make you feel really good about this team as we look at some other teams. We're going to take some of your questions, and I am going to tell you why two bad colors are about to become awesome again in the Berg. Stick around. You do not want to miss this. We will be right back on the Steeler Hangover right after this. All right, welcome back to BTSC's Steeler Hangover. Yeah, it's time once again, and it's not the best hangover in the world. It's it always stinks when the Steelers lose. It really does. The Steelers showed me something in this game yesterday, so maybe I am drinking that moral victory Kool-Aid. Alongside me, Bryan Anthony Davis, is Tony Defeo and Shannon White. Gentlemen, how's it look the rest of the season? Are you worried, Tony?
I think if they can get healthy enough, especially on defense, because the defense, I think, is still the strength of the team if they're healthy. I think they can hang in there. I mean, as we've said, the parity in the NFL is really, really, really obvious this year. So they can. I mean, the math says they can hang in. That there's hope. They just have to find a way to play more consistently, which they haven't been able to do yet this year. I don't know if they ever will, but if they can get healthy, their defense is good enough that they can keep them in most games. And I still look forward for them to be in it until the end.
Shannon, this team is 5-4-1. Is this just a death blow, that game yesterday?
No, I'm everybody knows I'm the eternal optimist. I look for the positives, which again, my positive was Ben's performance coming off the sick bed, not being able to practice all week. He did his Lazarus act once again and come out and if you was watching, one guy's a 39-year-old quarterback, the other one's 23, and I think one of the best arm talents, one or two in the league. He can make any throw. Herbert is a very talented young man. Ben was throwing the ball every bit as clean yesterday. If you look at the difference, the Chargers receivers were wide open. And Ben put some passes in there to DJ on that one drive back to back. That, I mean, he couldn't have thrown it better than he threw it. And he had a couple that were definitely catchable that they wasn't able to bring in. On the one that Ben underthrew to Claypool slowed down because he had to. He could have waited to caught the ball and then stayed on the ground. He waited, jumped in the air, tried to catch it like he likes to do, leaning back instead of high pointing the ball. And he instantly went down even before he was touched. All the guy had to do was come over and touch him. So, yes, the ball was, but, in that case, the worst thing you can do is overthrow it. And you have the wide open guy and you end up getting nothing. So, I think that part of the problem is Claypool still, that's what he did in college. He struggles to high point the ball and he don't play to his dimensions. So, I think that, they're going to have to continue to work on that. But I see the Steelers having more, I'm more positive about the Steelers after yesterday's game because I think that the offense shows that they can put points on the board if they have to, because they had no shot yesterday with all that defensive talent out, and they couldn't have stopped. They would have struggled against about anybody, much less a very explosive Chargers offense. So when they showed yesterday that Ben did, especially when you have to put points on the board, he can still do it. So I don't think that they're out of it by any means. The AFC, the whole NFL for that matter, parity is king right now. And, like yesterday, if you look at the teams that lost and who they lost to, the Titans lost, the Bills lost. Both of them teams were considered the best team in the AFC over the past few weeks, and they've both lost. The Ravens should have lost. They should have also lost to the Lions, but they're having a little bit better fortune than the Steelers are at the moment when it comes to those situations. So, no, I think that they're definitely still in it. They just got to win, and they got to hope that parity stays prevalent and it keeps them within the hunt till the playoffs arrive.
All right, so let's talk about this. And there's a lot of chatting in the live chat about how a lot of people don't expect the Steelers to win any more games. And we're talking about the other teams here too. And why is nobody bringing up the fact that these teams don't have problems? Because they do. These teams have problems. Baltimore Ravens are probably going to go next week without Lamar Jackson. That's what I read tonight. There's a strong possibility that they're not going to be playing. So when you look at that, he is not going to be playing. And the other thing is you might not see him December 5th against the Steelers either. The Cleveland Browns, if they're not playing Detroit yesterday, they're free fall. They're a mess right now. Right. And they have better depth. They have really a better roster than the Steelers. And they are dying a slow death. And the thing about them is now anybody can come back and say, well, they don't have their top running backs. That's fine. But no one's talking about the fact that the Steelers don't have their top defenders. And they hung in against this team. And they almost beat this team. And I know almost is something that we can't say here. Tony, you had an article about almost.
Yeah.
And I get that. But what I'm saying is they led with 3 minutes and 40 seconds left.
Right.
But everybody wants to talk about the warts on the Steelers. That's because we're close to the Steelers. And we're going to see the warts on the Steelers. But there's plenty of warts on the other teams. Right now, I think maybe Cincinnati's in the best shape. But what if... But what happened last year? Excuse me, what happened in week 3? How did Joe Burrow fare against TJ Watt in week 3?
He didn't play him.
Absolutely, he didn't play him.
Yeah.
So, what do you think, Golden Boy Burrow, who I really like, actually, I like Burrow. What do you think number 9 is going to do against a guy like number 90? Things might change, So with that, we've seen some weird losses from Cincinnati too.
Mhm.
And I saw somebody say that, well, actually, let me stop and take this. Charles Wigan's asking, will TJ be back? There's a possibility that he plays this week. A lot of people thought he would be playing, so check the injury report on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday is really what you need to know as far as TJ. But I saw earlier somebody said, hey, they're eighth in the conference right now, and they're dead in the water because of the head-to-heads. Head-to-heads don't matter anymore. They really don't.
Right. It's about half a game.
Yeah, all you don't even have to worry about equations and wins and losses as far as head-to-head right now. And the reason you don't have to is because that 0.5 takes care of everything. The Raiders, I think somebody mentioned the Raiders. The Raiders are a mess right now. The Raiders are going to be lucky to win another couple of games. That's because they're in bad shape.
Right.
Look at what Buffalo's doing right now. Buffalo is if you're a Buffalo fan, you're probably standing on the edge of an RV waiting to jump into Niagara Falls.
You're probably scared to death of the Patriots because they've been their boogeyman as they've been to everybody else in that division for 20 years.
And they're breathing down their neck.
Yeah.
You're an 18-year-old camper at Camp Crystal Lake, and the Patriots with a hockey mask are chasing you right now. And you're going to hide behind the chainsaws is what you're going to do.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they're...
Cemetery.
And guess who else is coming? Patrick Mahomes is coming.
Oh, yeah.
Guess who he's bringing with him? Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's healthy. Guess who else is coming along? Tyreek Hill. He's not allowed to beat on women right now, so he's got to beat on somebody. That was a very tasteless joke, but I have a problem with Tyreek Hill because of the pictures I saw of what he did to that girl.
Travis Kelce.
You've got Travis Kelce, who, the worst performance that Travis Kelce has had has been in a McDonald's commercial. Which I hated that McDonald's commercial. You know what else I hate? I know no one likes when I go off on tangents, but this is football related, so relax. Does Rob Gronkowski seem like the dumbest person alive in those USAA commercials? He really does.
He does. He does, but that's probably the point. It's probably what he's going for.
I get it. But anyways, there's a lot of problems right now in the AFC. I look at the team like the Colts is coming on strong, but guess what? The Colts, they're on a little bit of a roll. They were 1-4, and what are they now? 5-5?
Yeah.
They're on a little bit of a roll. Now they've got a very rough game this week. Very rough game. But I got to tell you, I'm seeing rays of hope for the Steelers. And I get it. I absolutely get it. Like I said, I'm gonna be worried too. I'm like Shannon. I look for the positive in everything, and I saw a lot of positives in that game because never expected them to win yesterday with all of those injuries, and they came close. Still not good enough. Mike Tomlin. It's not good enough for Mike Tomlin. First words he said was, wow, that was a rough one in his post-game press conference. But I love the heart of this team. I love a team that most of us were saying they're going to be lucky to be in 10th or 9th place in the conference. And they've got a really good opportunity to actually make the playoffs because the things that they're suffering, other teams are suffering too.
Right.
Couple are looking up. Tennessee has a rough game this weekend too. That's a possibility that they could lose this week. You might see the Ravens at the top of the conference this week. But as far as everything goes, it's still a pretty long season.
7 more games.
Yeah. And a lot of things can happen in those 7 games. Can the Steelers lose all 7? Absolutely. But Shannon, how many times have you seen the Steelers lose to a very close to winless team, a very sub 500 team, and lose to them, then come out and beat up a team that's at the top of their division that nobody thought they had a chance?
Oh, all the time. That's been their MO. Why everybody says they played down to the competition. And I don't think it's as relevant this year with being such a young roster, but they're trying to develop chemistry and cohesion, and it's just a process, like I keep saying, and it's taking some time. But yesterday, I was on offense. The Kevin Dobson's absence was just so critical because it killed that inside running game that they've been developing with Harris. And speaking of Harris, after taking the cheap shot elbow or forearm shiver to the head, and he got knocked out, which I thought for sure he had a concussion, but he was able to clear and come back in the game. That was another big turning point there, because on that last drive that they had where they ended up having to kick the field goal to take the lead, they threw the ball because they didn't have Harris, where I think they would have tried to lean on him. So that was even another moment in the game where they didn't have another one of their best players, maybe their best player on offense right now. So, that was a tough one.
Hey, any way you slice it, this team has an opportunity to go south fast or to make a run. I remember a team that was 3-4 in 1995. They made the Super Bowl that year. I remember a team that made the championship game another year, and with one of the best teams that the Steelers have ever had on defense, and that was 1976. Started out 1-4, and they went on a wild run. So, I mean, go ahead, Tony.
No, there's more. I'm sorry to interrupt. There's even more of a recent precedent. The 5 years ago, they were 4-5. Cam Hayward, they lost that disappointing last-second game to the Cowboys. Zeke Elliott just killed them, and they lost Cam Hayward, whether it was a torn bicep or pectoral muscle, I think.
Yep.
And they looked like they were dead in the water. They were calling for Tomlin's head and everything, and they went out and they won their last 7 regular season games. They won 9 in a row overall. And they made it to the championship. So, you just have to. And this team is so young. Like Shannon brought up, it's such a young team. They have so many youngsters that they're depending on. And to me, I don't know if it's going to benefit them this year, but there's a lot to be excited about with this team in the next couple of years. I mean, they're the second youngest roster in the league if you take Ben away. So there's a lot to be excited about in the near future.
So let's take a look at a couple super chats here, and we thank everybody. $5 from Wes Hickok. Reality is the team is capable of winning 7 straight, losing 7 straight, and finishing 8-9-1 or 9-8-1. They got to get consistent and healthy. Fellas, can you argue with that?
Well, they definitely have to get healthy. That's the biggest part. If they don't, if they get their stars back, then that's a big thing.
I can't argue with Wes on that one. Monster 19 gives us $4.99, and I love Monster because that is the happiest man alive when I see his avatar there. I would hang out with a Monster just for the fact that I know that he's joyful. I love that pick. Shout out to the heart this team showed last night. We might not be good, but dang it, we're still the Steelers. Here we go. My gosh, I want to run through my computer screen and hug Monster right now. That's awesome. I love that too. He said something heart, fellas. I'm going to ask you a question. Who in the last 20 years has shown more heart than Cam Hayward on the Steelers? Can you give me anybody?
No. And I think the thing that the one great thing, I mean, there are some other great things, but maybe the best thing to come out of these first 10 games, maybe this year as a whole, when all is said and done, is I think it's solidified Cam Hayward's legacy as an all-time Steeler great, because he's getting so much love and people see what he's doing practically all by himself in some of these games. Certainly on the defensive line with the problems they've had there. He's just, I think, people make fun of Booger McFarland a lot, but he was the first one to acknowledge a couple years ago that this guy's a Hall of Famer. Now more and more people are catching on to his greatness.
That's well put. I mean, TJ's obvious, but Cam does the dirty work too.
Yeah.
And that man ran down the field like he was being chased by a bear. Seriously, I'm a big guy and I don't try to run, but I think I could be pretty fast if someone's trying to kill me and it's a bear or something chasing me. And he went after a 23-year-old kid and tracked him down. It looked like 1984, number 76 for the American Outfitter Eagles, running down Mike Pomane from about the star of the league at running back, running him down and pulling him from behind on not one play, but 2 consecutive plays. Now, I was little back then, but I wasn't fast. I was never fast. So I got to tell you, Cam, if Cam isn't one of your all-time favorite players for the Steelers, I'd be shocked, because he's not obvious. You're going to buy that 90 jersey before you buy a 97.
Right.
But my goodness, this guy is something special. Shannon, would you put him on the 1970s teams? Can you find a place on the steel curtain, that front four for Cam?
You had asked me this in the past, and I said I would never touch that front four. And Cam is a 3-4 lineman, which he's kind of the hybrid tackle or end. But he definitely is one of the Steelers' all-time great defensive linemen. I've wrote about it in my latest article, Stock Report article, that like Tony said, that's what he's done this season. Is he's missing 2/3 of the best defensive line, I think, in the NFL last year, and he's having to carry so much responsibility, and he's showing such great leadership. Last night, he was so excited. He was as enthusiastic as a rookie, and he was getting them guys fired up. And you knew if anybody was going to make a play, he was going to do it. And then he was able to create that turnover. And so he is definitely one of the all-time greats. I would say I also have mad respect for Aaron Smith. He didn't get the opportunity. They've allowed Cam to be more aggressive. And they started changing up how they use their defensive linemen. For the longest time, Smith was the ultimate team player. And I think he deserves mention in the all-time greats as well. But I would not touch that 70s defensive line. But Cam is definitely one of the all-time greats.
Okay, Tony. Cam's a 1980s Steeler. Is he a Hall of Famer?
Well, yeah. I mean, look what Keith Willis did in the 80s. I think he's more talented than Keith Willis was. And Keith Willis was a great player. So I think Cam – if he was, in that era and maybe had more of a spotlight on him, because there weren't many stars back then, he probably would have made it to the Hall of Fame. But I think there's still a shot for him to do that. And to Shannon's point, could you imagine if they never set Cam loose and if he was the prototypical 3-4 2 gap guy who ate up blockers like Aaron Smith and Chemo and those guys? It would be such a shame to miss out on these 6-7 years of what he's been able to do for them.
Absolutely. How would you? I'm going to stop doing this, I promise. How would you like to see Cam on one of the 90s teams with Greg Lloyd and Kevin Green and Lavon and Chad Brown? My gosh, right. I think tell you what, I think Emmitt Smith has a lot more problems in that game, and the Steelers kind of shut him down. But I'm in love with Cam all over again. I think it's great. What was Cam? A little trivia, guys. Let's have some fun. What was Cam's first number in Pittsburgh? It might have been in the preseason, but I have a picture of him wearing a different number, and he's in uniform. It's during, I believe, a preseason game.
Huh?
Do you know what that was? Well, you remember the story. You remember that Hines Ward was originally photographed in training camp as 15. Back,
no, I didn't know that
in
either.
the day. Yes, he was number 15 in training camp. What was Cam? Shannon, any Tony looks perplexed. Shannon, you got anything?
I don't know.
Was it 92?
No, it was 95.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay, so
wow.
he was 95. So when you throw out 92, what was James Harrison's first number with the Steelers? Played a full season, I believe, with it.
90 was it 93?
It was
No, it
93.
couldn't have been 93.
It was 93. Yes.
I just it was a wild guess. I had no basis for knowing that.
Okay. So I had an opportunity to go ahead and tease this. So there's a couple colors that are okay again. We hate the Ravens and we hate purple. My kids won't buy me anything purple. Because I mean, there's a ban on grape soda in the Davis house, in the bad house for a while. And you know we hate orange, right? But gentlemen, let's Oreo cookie this. And let's take our purple and let's take our orange or a deep red, but that's coming off as orange, and let's mix them all together. And what's that give you, my friends?
Orange and purple. Is it brown? What's orange and purple get you?
Tony, come on, you're an 80s guy.
Orange and purple. If you mix them together.
And not really
I
mix
don't
them, but you put them together. As of today, and I'm the only one making a big deal out of this, but in 2022, one of the throwbacks to my favorite year is 1984. And one year we had purple and orange. And guess what it was? The Pittsburgh Maulers are back in the USFL in 2022, announced today. Tony didn't know that. Yeah, the Maulers are back. Shannon, do you remember the Maulers?
No.
I used to watch Maulers games.
Yeah.
Well, they had the number 1 pick in the draft, and they got Mike Rozier, which was a pretty darn big deal. And then
I still can't believe it.
I could tell you who the quarterback was. Number 18, Glenn Carano. And Glenn Carano was a backup quarterback or a third-string quarterback for the Cowboys in the Super Bowl years against the Steelers. And it was just, they weren't very good. The DeBartolos owned the team, and so the Maulers, there's a slightly new logo, just like a 2021 version of the logo. But yeah, they're back. The Maulers are back, and I am thrilled. And look, I say I'm going to try to watch the new XFL, and I say I'm going to try to watch the AFL and all these things that they try. But I still have my Pittsburgh Maulers t-shirt, and I can't fit in that. My kids will. Oh, my daughter will love that. She likes that throwback stuff. But you know what? This is special to me. I will watch a Pittsburgh Maulers team because they're going to be nationally televised, and in Pittsburgh as a team, I don't want to watch the USFL without Pittsburgh, but I'm going to be into it if there's a Pittsburgh team. So I'm lobbying now, and I know I am going to be shut down. But I got an LOL from Jeff Hartman when I mentioned this. But BTSC is always going to be here. But what about BTMC behind the mall curtain?
You never know. You never know what the future may bring if they take off. If this league takes off, they need the star power. That's all. The AFL got Joe Namath, so if the USFL can get somebody like that out of college, like Kenny Pickett or something, a big hitter like that.
Oh gosh, I'm excited. But with that, let's wrap this up. Yeah, hey, not thrilled about the loss I don't feel like it's a death knell, the loss yesterday. I see a lot of good things coming out of it, and we are going to prep hard to give you all the information that you need about the Steelers and the Bengals. And I'm going to tell you one thing. It's going to be interesting. So for Tony Defeo, for Shannon White, my name is Bryan Anthony Davis. I need you to do 3 things. And it's simple. Be safe. Also, be true to yourself. And always be behind the steel curtain. So, once again, I'm going to ask you a question. Or actually, I'm going to tell you something. And I'm going to be emphatic when I say it. Just when you think you've got all the answers.
We keep changing the questions.
Woo!
Good night. Happy Thanksgiving. We love you. We can't do this without you. God bless.